Oh, welcome. Right. We got some youth matches to play, and we've been putting it off and putting it off. A little bit to do with time, a little bit to do with just speculative. Like, it was quite speculative, but there was obviously always a chance we might buy another youth player, and getting them in these matches so they get some development points would have been preferable, nice, good, whatever. But we didn't get them. Obviously, there's still a couple of days left or whatever, but we could still get one, and this could all still be true or whatever. But the issue we've got is that just got a really busy couple of days coming up, and so now I've had the time to sort of be able to play the matches and record them, etc. So, for the purposes of this series, I'm going to at least play some now. I don't know how many we'll get. There are 2 for right now. Whatever. We don't know. We're just going to try and squeeze some in now, because it's possible we can, but we honestly don't know later. It's possible we won't. I'm sure we'll at least have an opportunity to trigger them, to start the matches just so they get played, and we can do the thing where we analyse the stats again, maybe. But we've already done that. It'd be nice to play them. I think we did have the situation where let's just click request, because we don't have time to rework out a new tactic. And I think the reality is that we did win all 8 with this setup. Basically, we've got the same team. I think we have sold maybe 1 or possibly 2 players that were on the bench, maybe. So the team is slightly weaker. We didn't pick anyone up, I don't think, for the youth. So we are slightly weakened, but only terribly slightly. And I still think we can be going into these 8 matches, at least if we get to play them, with the attitude that anything less than 8 wins we shouldn't be happy. Our team is just our youth team in particular is just way, way better than the opposition, and on average or whatever. So, it's possible we could get really, really unlucky and maybe get a draw, maybe get a loss, I don't know, but we should be gunning for 8 wins, and kind of think realistically anything less than I would say 7 wins and a loss, or 6 wins and 2 draws type of thing. I think that's kind of okay, bad luck, whatever happens, and that happens. But I think that's kind of the low midpoint of expectations here. So basically anything worse than that, I think we can consider that we have done bad, we have failed, no matter how unlucky we are. Basically, we can blame bad luck on a loss or 2 draws. I kind of feel anything worse than that, it's because of us. That's kind of where I'm at in regards to how the strength of our team versus the opposition. So, but obviously we are going for 8 wins out of 8. That's the plan. That's the hope. That's the aspiration. We did work this. If you're curious about the tactic we're playing, we won't really discuss the fundamentals of it, but we did create it in a video. You should be able to dig that up. It would have been part of or before the 8 youth matches from the previous league, so the Winter League. So yeah, you'll be able to look that up if you want. For now, I think we loosely remember it. Loosely, we played no friendlies or anything going into this, so to be honest, I'm not even 100% sure. Maybe we didn't change something randomly or whatever, but I'm pretty sure we didn't. I'm pretty sure we just played the matches and left it. I had a quick look before I started this video just at the tactic, and I didn't change anything, but I'm fairly confident it's the same one. Right, to the match. They haven't really created anything, and I had a shot, but I don't think we have been that dangerous, to be honest. I don't think I can be sitting here at this point saying I am, based on what I've seen in this match in isolation, that I am extremely confident that we will score. But that being said, we do have the benefit of having already played a bunch of matches with this tactic, knowing that it is generally quite strong, so I don't really want to make any panicky type reactions after 17 minutes, especially when they haven't really done anything themselves, because of that, basically. That was an excellent chance. So if we had have just seen that earlier, we kind of would be feeling pretty comfortable right now that we are creating something. So, yep. So hopefully, we're kind of confident that we should create a little bit more like that, a couple more chances maybe like that, and yeah. Not panic mode, not panic time yet. We'll roll with it for a bit. And that chance effectively just means that realistically we are kind of rolling with this tactic certainly if they don't really create anything much, and even if we don't, I guess we're rolling with it for probably the rest of this half, and then we'll be using up if it is the case that we just don't create anything. That wasn't great. He hit the trigger, pulled the trigger early. I mean, having said that, like, it was a bit of a meh chance, but like, I think the shot, for example, wasn't reflective of the quality of the chance, kind of thing. I think the chance was not as bad as what it looked. I think it was a decent chance we created. I feel like in another game he takes maybe a couple more touches, he gets a bit closer, etc. So I feel like that one maybe not, but whatever. Like, I feel like on the whole, still not panic time. We've created what is effectively one really high quality chance, and I think everything else you could categorize it somewhere between not even a half chance, something like less, somewhere between like highly speculative and quite speculative. So yeah, not. Yeah, that we're just happy to give that up. Not worried at all. Yeah, so that's another. So that's two like super great chances. Really, certainly on average, we would be expecting to score over one of them, like 1 point something. Another game, it could easily have been both of them, obviously. And then you obviously score a shot that's like, it's a decent one. It's certainly the type of long shot we can score, and obviously because we just did. So that's the thing. I think on the whole, though, like, this tactic is super strong in that it does create generally quite a high general chance flow, combined with what is basically another super high quality chance there. So it creates a good combination of like super quality chances, more than a few of those every game on average, and yeah. And to some degree, like, you can sort of see that goal off the corner as an extension of the super high quality chance, because realistically, once he's that close, like, if you don't score, let's say, then it's a pretty decent percentage chance that it's a corner, basically. So you could sort of definitely see the fact that the corner was sort of like, I don't know, like a consolation prize or something for not having scored the goal there, and then the corner leads to the goal, sort of thing. So so you could, that corner in particular, you could just sort of see as an extension of the shot that it led to it, sort of thing. I'm not sure quite. I feel like it's very difficult to explain this conceptually, but the fact that he missed that chance and you got a corner out of it is nowhere near as bad as missing that chance and just putting it wide, basically. Forcing saves is good, effectively. Especially when, well, not always. It sounds obvious, but not always. It's only good if there's a reasonable chance you'll get something out of it. So for example, if they're just going to parry it forwards or whatever and then pick it up themselves, or a defender gets it or whatever, then it's not particularly that useful. And obviously different types of chances can lead. But when it's obviously he's coming through one-on-one and he's shooting directly in front, if the keeper parries it, kind of nothing good realistically is happening for them. Like, it's obviously better than conceding the goal, but it isn't the case that it's not gonna. The best case scenario is that he parries it to a really wide spot near the touch line or the baseline, that out here somewhere, basically, and the striker has to run to get it. And that's obviously it's possible, but it's super unlikely. So to some degree, within reason, if they're going to save it, like, the best it can kind of hope for is that they give up the corner, is what I'm saying. So that's the awesome thing about if you get the chances right through the middle one-on-one like that. Well, obviously he could catch it. That one was, this keeper caught that one, and that wasn't. It was a little bit farther, but still quite close. But I feel like once they're through and it's like that type of one-on-one, because the keeper was on his line as well, so there was more distance between the shot and the keeper. When you're through on light, the keeper will obviously come to close out, and quite often the shot will happen. It's another great chance. Quite often the shot will happen You know, when the distance between the keeper and the shot is short, even if the distance between where the shot is being taken and the goal is longer. What I'm trying to say is when the players are clean through, and they, you know, clean through and they dribble it instead of shooting like that. I mean, to be honest, it's just, yeah, this match is just over. Like, it really just feels that way. It's just been completely one-sided. So I guess in a roundabout way, and summarise what I'm saying is when you have a chance and you miss it, it also matters how you miss it. And that to some degree is going to be kind of impacted just by the nature of the chance itself, somewhat. Like, you know, the fact that miss happened and then we got that extra chance, that matters versus that not happening. Because sometimes that second attempt will be scored. So it's not the same as just a miss like that. It's not the same as that. And that, for example, was from this type of angle, and there's way more chance that will end up going wide than something that's straight front on. So it kind of sounds obvious, but having chances from straight front on is better than having them from out wide at difficult angles. And not just because you have more chance of scoring the chance itself, but because when you miss the chance, that it's more chance that it will lead to something. That's something being a goal. That's another great chance. Right. It is still kind of interesting that for all of this, I mean, complete domination, we could have way more than 2 goals here as well. And again, like at that point, there wasn't really... I mean, he could have potentially pulled back. There were some later arrives. He could have properly pulled back, maybe, but... you know, that wasn't a good chance on the whole because it ended up too wide. Right. So we're left with not really needing to make any subs, but possibly making some for the purposes of just getting some... I think this guy we maybe are okay to try to develop. I think... maybe that guy. I'm not sure if he should be the cover, but whatever. We're dominating that much, it doesn't matter. And then I think the other one is maybe this guy, but it kind of feels like he's probably not doing anything. Let's work the other one out after. We don't really need these guys to actually play to help or whatever. They're making our team worse, even if they're replacing tired guys. So we probably should have waited a bit more to do these subs. Especially the DC. He's kind of truly bad. So again, this just isn't a great chance. Like, it isn't. It could be a goal, but it's just not anywhere near as good as when it's through the middle. We forgot to pause. What are we doing? Let's see. Hopefully we get it. We're not going to get it. Oh, maybe we do. Maybe we do. If we do, I'm going to sub the keeper, I think. It's not very often we get to do that, so we might as well get him some free point. Yeah, he's got no future. Let's sub this midfielder on. That keeper probably has... That keeper's just awful, so... Having said that, he probably will be in the squad next season, so maybe we should have brought him on, because if you're going to have an awful keeper that will be on the bench every match, it's probably better that better than if he's worse. Anyway, still now. I don't think there's a lot to cover here. We'll move straight into the next match. Honestly, I think the main takeaway from this match is that the start was quite rough. It was like 13 minutes or more in, 13, 14 minutes, and we hadn't really done anything much. And so the main takeaway here is that we were just totally comfortable, composed, knowing even at that moment we would literally wait until halftime before changing anything. So being able to not make panic changes is important, and being able to also make decisive changes when things aren't working is important. So being able to assess this, I mean, hopefully I was trying to explain the reasoning enough, but at the end of the day, if you know exactly how, we have a pretty clear understanding of how good our team is versus the opposition. We have a pretty clear understanding of exactly how unlucky we're going to need to be to lose. And I think part of it as well, we have a pretty clear understanding that our bench is way worse than our starting unit. So any change that we make that involves substitutes is going to result in something worse as well. So even if we want to change something, at the end of the day, our options are quite limited. We could make small tweaks to things and whatever, but at the end of the day, the main reason why is just confidence, and not misplaced confidence, like correctly placed confidence. How do you know the difference? Oh, I think part of it is winning 8 matches in a row. And even before we had all these better players and everything, and we were running a whole bunch of really bad players, our youth team still did really well. So I think the fact that, I think to some degree there is an element here where we've sort of looking like we'll end up, to some degree, if you're winning enough where you're literally winning every single game, then all of a sudden I don't think the confidence is sort of misplaced at that point, especially if there's sort of nothing obviously wrong. Because the thing is, it was just 13 minutes at the end of the day. That's the thing. Even matches where we end up with 25 shots, maybe 17, 18 shots or whatever. I don't think that's the last time we did have that type of number, 17, 18, something like that. Even these matches where you completely dominate, within the match somewhere, there is typically a patch of 13 minutes or so where maybe you didn't do much. You only had one very speculative shot and that was it. And it just might be the case, sometimes, occasionally, that random 13 minutes where you don't do much, it happens to be the first 13 minutes. So that's why it's important. Again, front on chance, the parry happens, and you get the goal, basically. The angle matters so much, and the nature of how the shot is saved matters so much in regards to the chances that you're manufacturing. So these type of chances where they're clean through like that, they're kind of super. They're not ordinary chances. They're very high quality. Which at its core is why you want, ideally, especially in higher levels where, because the thing is it's all obvious or whatever, but it's obviously the reason, one of the key reasons why the speed is an important attribute for strikers. It isn't because, it doesn't have to be for any more reasons than this, that because of that, a couple times a game, they get a chance. They get a chance of that extremely high quality nature that they otherwise wouldn't get. And that's all it needs to be, basically. And you could flip this around. That's possibly all it needs to be. This is the thing. I mean, you've got to trade everything off, because if they're really fast, then typically the finishing is lower and whatever. And then you're saying, well, they might miss those high quality chances because of the lower finishing, and then the other half, those chances where it's passing around, they get in the box or whatever. They miss those as well. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it depends on the tactic and everything. But I'm just saying, especially if your tactics are not great, if they're a bit, well, to be honest, this team is just, I don't think this tactic for this youth team is particularly great. It's great from the perspective that we have some very clearly have players, our strikers and our centre halves, that are just way better than the competition. Way, 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 way better. So we've just built a tactic that just leans into that heavily. Exploits that, you could say. But the thing is, we could have these same centre halves and strikers, and be in a much higher division, and they wouldn't be way better, right? They would be similar level. And then with a tactic like this, you're basically just flipping, it's just total. It's like a random number generator at that point. It's just like totally random. Not totally, I just mean in regards to the results, it's so heavily factored on just getting lucky in key moments all of a sudden. Like, there's no real consistency to it. Consistency in the play, I mean. Whereas you can have other tactics and you can build, if you don't have this sort of long ball up and back thing like this team, like our senior team, you can build consistency in the game, basically, in how your team plays out matches. And yes, you might not win every match, but it's much easier to get consistent with results if the way that the matches are being played out is consistent in a good way. Whereas this team, ultimately, it feels like it's super consistent, but it's only super consistent because the players are so much better than the opposition, and we're exploiting our particular strengths. Again, this feels very light, like, in regards, like, it feels like we're totally on top of this game, and the reality is that this is definitely, like, a bad game for us on average. We're normally way more on top, but right now it's like, let's just keep going, because we probably score at least one more goal. They're not really we probably score at least one more, probably more than one. We may not score any, but again, like, they probably don't score any, and if they do, it's probably only one. At the end of the day, you just leave it, because if you do, from here, I would say that 9 times out of 10, and possibly closer to 19 out of 20, or maybe even more than that, we just win this game. But yeah, that's not 100%. At all. If it's 9 out of 10, 19 out of 20, halfway in between, whatever, it's 10% of the time we don't, 5% of the time we don't, whatever it may be. If it's 5% of the time we don't, there you go, boom, could be the 5%, right? Like, there's sort of just quite a chance that broadly, not entirely, I do say from there, it is that little spot where it's not as bad as you think, it's a decent chance, and, they probably score that 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7, depending on the player that it falls to and whatever. But even now, I'm still quite confident that we will win this game just by changing nothing. Now, we may change something, especially if we end up needing to roll the dice a little bit at the end. Right, sorry, I just had to talk to the missus quickly. So yeah, I mean, I was, point proven in the absence, I suppose. We scored. Now, we haven't, doesn't just because we scored, we ain't won. So, but I think on the whole, like, my original analysis there's a very good chance it just ends up being proven correct, that, like, we will probably score at least one more, probably more than one, and, well, whatever I said, I don't even remember. Probably score at least one more, quite likely, good chance, whatever, we'll score more than one, and they may score one, but it's quite unlikely they'll score more than one. And you just add all that up together, and it's like we can have a pretty reasonable degree of bad luck, and we still win anyway. And that kind of amounts to something like, if we played the second half out 20 times, not changing it, like, we probably win 19 of them. But yeah, obviously that means, 18 of them or whatever. But yeah, that's obviously 1 out of 20, 2 out of 20, whatever, that we didn't. Which means, obviously, if in the senior team context, you're playing 48 games in a season, so you apply that kind of math, even if your team is dominating, winning every match, like the ones that are like this, the 10 or so in the season or whatever that are in the balance a bit, you don't win all those basically. So but at its core, I think if the objective is to win as much as possible, then I think the alternative up to leaving it the same is to change it, obviously. And I just feel like on the whole, especially if you're talking about a whole half of football and you know that your team is already doing okay and has a proven track record of doing okay, that it's basically just more risky to change it with a whole half left. Now that could be different through the lens of where we are now with a few minutes left. Now they're about to have a set piece. I'm inclined, unless I'm going to do something that's going to help us defend it, which quite frankly I don't know. This guy Aerial, but he could come on. Yeah, so they're no good. This guy's only 18 and 17 tackling, so we could, for example, sub Seniori off for some McAllister, just help us defend this a bit more. So we'll just do that change. Wow, okay. So, and now we'll pull. Well, I should have pulled straight away, try and catch. So now I think it is time to start thinking about the fact that this whole idea of we probably score, they probably don't, blah 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 blah. That philosophy matters a lot when it's like, well, let's just make the change first. I think it's just this. So that philosophy matters a lot when there's 45 minutes left, when there's 50 minutes left, when there's 60 minutes left, when there's 40 minutes left, when there's whatever. But as you draw closer and closer and closer to the end of the match, that philosophy almost doesn't matter anymore, because it doesn't matter probably anything anymore. Like, a good example is they scored that goal before, right? And then we scored one, so we're winning again. But the thing is, like, when you're right near the end of the match, if they happen to score, even if it's the case that we probably would eventually score ourselves, there is no eventually, the match is over. So, you know, it can quite often be the case when you're dominating a match that making a change to go defensive when there's no sort of clear reason to other than the fact that you're winning when there's a lot of time left, that's quite often a really bad thing to do. However, when there's 3 minutes left, it can be a good thing to do. Just going to pause again with all of this in mind, because this guy's on 69% condition. So what we can do now is just sub him off for something else. I think we can just sub him off for this guy, change him to defensive winger. We know that guy's got decent tackling. And that's just a change with the intention to just, you know, drain out that last minute without them scoring, basically. Oh, he was really good at that. Just kick it out of play. Waste a bit of time. Game over. So, right. 2 more wins. Awesome. And, again, this one feels like, I don't know. It does. The thing is, it was a bit similar in nature to some degree to the ones we lost, but I think there's a difference of that. The fact that we were not losing, we weren't behind. It is interesting though in a match like this, because I can say whatever we say, but it's very confident when you are not losing. But if they had scored first, you know, that's when it gets really interesting. Do you hit the panic button when we're only ultimately creating, like having 11 shots when normally we have closer to 20? Do you panic? Do you stick with it? I don't know. But the thing is, it didn't happen. So it's hard because it's a situation. This thing is a situational. It matters on the specifics of the match that is hypothetical. So, alright, that's the end of this video. We'll catch you for the next one. Cheers.